welcome to the third edition of the Stu Basement Tapes. The results of last night's election show that once again, Canadians have a conservative minority government led by Stephen Harper.
But how did we get here? This week's edition of the Basement Tapes will take a look back at the past few weeks of the election. We'll examine how criminal legislation, arts legislation, and the international vote all played a part in the final tally.
Conservative leader Stephen Harper's proposed youth crime law attempts to convince voters that youth crime is on the rise. While everyone agrees it's a serious problem, opinions differ on how to deal with it. Ayat explains.
If Stephen Harper is re-elected, youths as young as 14 could be identified if they commit violent crimes. Sentences would be stiff and automatic for crimes such as murder or manslaughter. Harper says rehabilitation requires harsher punishment to drive home the seriousness of their actions. The director of Fredericton's John Howard Society is Valerie McCullum. She says we need to get smarter, not tougher.
We keep putting people in jail expecting it to work, and it's not. I mean, we put young people in jail and they come out better offenders.
McCullum says youth crime is a social problem, not a criminal one. She says prisons are an inappropriate, expensive, and ineffective way to address social problems.
Less sentencing, more programs in the community would be of greater benefit to those that are currently involved in the criminal justice system. So the research supports less, not more.
Trevor Woolston is an ex-offender who has experienced the criminal justice system as both a youth and an adult. He says young offenders need services and support, not prison.
That's all my friends talked about. They would go inside and come out worse than they went in. There's no question about that.
Studies show that youth crime in Canada is declining. In 2006, for example, the youth crime rate was 6% lower than a decade earlier. Crime rate figures show that Canadians are safer today than they have been for many years, a contrast to what the Conservative Party would like you to believe.
Tougher sentences for violent youths make sense on the surface, but will they really be rehabilitated?
Other ways to approach this, jail sentencing is insane. It's going to do nothing and cost a lot.
McCollum says addressing the social issues of poverty and homelessness would be more effective than throwing these kids in jail. For Stu Journalism, I'm Ayat Abreseid.
Thanks, Ayat. Now we move from criminal to arts legislation. The Conservative government recently announced a $45 million cut to arts and culture funding, enraging Canada's arts community. Artists and thespians are speaking out against Harper's proposal. They feel Harper is ignoring the importance of arts in Canada. Diane Cole has more on the story.
Students at the New Brunswick College of Craft and Design work on fine-tuning their talents. Students come here to learn essential skills to pursue a career in the arts. But UNB drama professor Len Falkenstein says these students might not have careers if the arts funding cuts are given the green light.
And you know they're now promising this tax rebate for things like music lessons. That's great. Those kids can go off and take music lessons and then grow up to do what? Play in their symphony? Well, there won't be one. Play for the ballet? Well, there won't be one. Do soundtracks for Canadian movies? Well, there won't be any of those either.
The money isn't the only thing concerning Canadian artists. Stephen Harper says normal Canadians don't want the arts. This would mean they don't want dancing, or sculptures, or handmade jewelry. The Conservatives have dubbed artists as rich elitists who can't connect with regular people. But Conservative MP Mike Allen says the arts community is overreacting to the funding cut.
I think if the arts community in general looked at the funding that's been given over the past couple of years, they would see that the community funding and that type of thing is still just as vibrant, and the contributions to the community are just as much as they ever were.
But Falkenstein says this funding increase has gone mainly to the 2010 Olympics and community events. It isn't being used to preserve Canadian programming and culture. Canadian artists already compete with American TV, movies, and music. They are afraid that these cuts will result in Canada losing its cultural identity to flashier American culture.
The show isn't supposed to end until the Fat Lady sings, but art supporters like Falkenstein believe it could end sooner if the government makes its funding cut. With less arts and culture funding, Canadians could see more empty theatres like this. For Stu Journalism, I'm Diane Cole.
Thanks, Diane. Well, a good number of people made it out to the polls last Tuesday night. Some didn't because they legally can't. These people say they're frustrated with Canadians who are wasting their right to vote. Melissa Russworm has more.
All Canadians have the right to vote, but not all of them are. Dan Blais, a student at St. Thomas University, has decided that he's not voting because the candidates don't represent what he wants in a leader.
Just because it's like choosing a lesser of two evils kind of thing. I don't know which puppet I want to run for me. None of the different campaigns appealed to me.
As a non-Canadian in Canada during the election, Sabrina Sarturu does not have the choice to vote. She can't understand why someone would pass up the opportunity.
And of course, I'm intrigued. Why would you not go vote? You have that ability. Go vote. I do not have that ability. I cannot go vote. And they said, well, because there is no one that I can choose from. Which, on one hand, I understand that there may be political views that are not represented in these elections. But at the same time, there has to be someone under one issue that you agree with.
Many young Canadians don't vote due to a lack of knowledge. Camila Vasquez doesn't think this is a legitimate excuse. She feels maybe our relaxed lifestyle is to blame.
Life is easier here and they don't have as many worries as they would have in South America. Being a 19 or 20-year-old in South America is completely different from being a 19 or 20-year-old here. They don't worry about the same things as we do. From the people that I've asked, they're all voting, but I think not being informed is a bad excuse because obviously the only one that is going to get you to be informed is you.
Whether the fault of the voters or the candidates, young Canadians remain skeptical of the voting process.
I love freedom. I love democracy. I love this ability to be able to vote. I just don't think it's well set up right now. Maybe I don't like the system that's allowing for this voting.
As the election is just wrapping up, it'll be interesting to know just how many Canadians exercise their democratic right to vote. For Stu Journalism, I'm Melissa Russworm.
Great job, Melissa. Thanks. Stay tuned. After the break, we continue to look back on the last week in the election.